Hello, everybody. I'm a practicing therapist and I am also a doctoral student of psychology. Today, let's go over strategies to help an avoidant individual connect more closely with their partner, okay? And this is based on the experience that I've had working with couples. This is particularly with long-term relationships, but it can work with short-term relationships as well. This is important that we emphasize the importance of mutual understanding and communication to foster healthy relationships. We want both individuals to lean in and try and do the work, but it is also important to recognize that some of these strategies, just being 100% honest with you, you could do them without your partner wanting to do the work, and eventually they will start doing the work because they feel trusting to you. So you might have to start it first. However, that doesn't mean they're not going to do the work down the road, if that makes sense, okay? And we're going to talk about these strategies. The first one is actually reinforced compromise. We want individuals to communicate openly and collaboratively about spending time together, or in general about other things you guys are looking for. So I think the best way to look at it is any sort of disagreement you guys have about anything, including the clash that you guys have of attachment issues. Sometimes what you need to do is meet in the middle, or put somebody's preferences on the back burner momentarily and revisit it. So let's give an example, okay? I'm going to give two examples. The first one I'm going to give with is about spending time together. The next one I'm going to give is about bedroom intimacy, okay? So let's first start with spending time together. The first way that we're going to look at it is, let's say the avoidance preferences is to spend less time actually together, but they want it more meaningful. So they might like spending only like 4 or 5 hours together and maybe just once a week, where you might want maybe 2 or 3 times a week and maybe 6 hours. Okay. And so obviously there's different preferences. Let's try and see if we can compromise. Sometimes what can help is you could say something like, okay, I would like if we could spend more time together, but I understand if only once a week works for you. Is it possible that instead of spending 4 hours during the time we spend together, can it be 6 hours or sometimes overnight? How do you feel about that? And so you're respecting their preferences, but you're also trying to meet them in the middle. This one is a little bit more palatable. However, with bedroom intimacy, this one can be a little bit more challenging, which is why we're going to use a different type of reinforced compromise for that particular issue. Let's say the avoidant individual is pulling away in the bedroom entirely. This is common. It does not mean that you did something wrong. This is very common because avoidant individuals, they struggle with feeling connected to all parts of intimacy. So often when they're feeling very close to somebody, they're not able to fully enjoy the romantic connection, because it's actually very intense when you're having intimacy with someone you care about. It's a lot more emotional. And so it's very hard for them to connect the two, body and mind. And so what ends up happening with this particular one, there's a different type of compromise that you may have to do. You may say, I would like if we had bedroom intimacy, and I'd like if that's something we could prioritize. However, I'm starting to recognize that's not something that you're ready for right now. Let's say originally you guys had intimacy, but now they pull away. You can mention, I'm okay with us taking a break from intimacy for a while, but I was wondering if at one point we could revisit it and prioritize it at that time. What do you think? Avoidant individuals find that one much more palatable to that, right? Because you're not saying we're never going to have it. You're also not saying let's try and fix it right now. You're saying, I realize you need more time with this. Let's put this on the shelf and look at it later. This is very hard for a lot of people, but it's very important to recognize it's not personal. Avoidant individuals have done this in past relationships prior to you, and they're going to do it with you as well. It's just something to keep in mind, okay? The next one is we want to understand how different people communicate, connection styles. You may have different connection styles comparison to an avoidant. Avoidant individuals tend to show love through actions like running errands rather than verbal compliments, whereas anxious individuals benefit or prefer reassurance from compliments. Understanding how you guys communicate differently and appreciating that for what it is instead of trying to change it can very much help the avoidant individual to want to lean into love, lean into attachment, be more open to wanting to really bond and invest in this relationship, okay? So an example could be to reinforce this, really drive that point home, is let's say your partner filled gas in your car for you. You might say something like, I really appreciate how hard you work for our relationship. Thank you for showing up in such a way. That means a lot to me, right? And so you mention that throughout, you reinforce that. However, if you're wanting those verbal compliments, you could mention, because you're always reinforcing the other things that they're doing, every now and again you might say, I really appreciate all the times you show up for us. I actually feel like maybe I would want some more verbal compliments. Do you think that every now and again you could compliment my appearance or my outfit, something like that? And they might feel more understanding of what you're trying to say because you've already understood their connection style, and vice versa, right? Avoidant individuals, you might be more prominent or more attuned to your partner showing love by running errands or doing something like that for you. But recognizing that their reassurance and verbal compliments is a sign of their showing love, you might want to appreciate that. So it works both ways, okay? The next one is you want to communicate in a logical way while still communicating the emotion, right? And so saying, I feel so stressed, I feel so hurt, how come you're never there for me? That's emotion, but it's not logically showing instructions of what to do. And that can very much confuse avoidant individuals. So partners can express their concern in a logical manner while still incorporating emotional context. Avoidants actually favor logical discussions. However, it's very crucial to express those emotions so it can create healing and connection. And so an example of that could be, I had a really difficult day today. I was wondering if after work we could have a 5 to 10 minute phone call where I could just vent to you for a little bit, and then maybe afterwards we can discuss some solutions because I'm feeling really frustrated. So you had some emotional context, right? But you're saying it in a logical, more palatable way for the avoidant individual. The next one is we want to create interdependence within the relationship. And how do we do that? We want to balance independence with dependence. Partners should actually engage in personal hobbies separately while also integrating activities together. This can prevent the feelings of suffocation, smothered, or also neglect. So an example could be that maybe you have some hobbies that are very familiar to one another as a couple, and then some that you don't really agree with. So let's say you guys both like fitness, go to the gym together, take a walk together, connect in that way. Avoidants really work with side-by-side communication, very helpful. And so you guys can do things like that, and then also do separate hobbies. But then maybe after a long day, you guys can have a phone call or talk over dinner. And so you're still allowing the different communication styles to be involved while also engaging in both independence and interdependence, okay? The next one is obvious, but I think it's still important. We want to avoid pressure with our partners, okay? It's important to allow avoidants to communicate when they're feeling pressured. So if you're an avoidant, please communicate that. And your partner, the partner of the avoidant, understand what topics might be a bit more pressuring and avoid bringing them up too frequently. Or when you notice your partner's feeling a little bit pressured, mention, hey, I'm noticing you're feeling a little pressured. Do you want me to back up on this topic and maybe we can revisit it later? And so you're allowing your partner to feel a little bit more comfortable with some of these topics because it's hard, right? And you love your partner and you don't want them to feel uncomfortable. And so if you're talking about marriage timelines, hey, I want to get married in 5 years, they might say, okay, I'm not sure about that right away, but maybe we can talk about that when that time gets closer. You can say, okay, I can appreciate that. Just letting you know that's my preference, right? You're not saying, hey, you got to change. We have to get married now. We have to start making steps for that. We have to get engaged before that because we have to save for the wedding. You're not putting all those timelines involved. You're just saying, hey, this is who I am. How do you feel about that? And then you're allowing them to take time to process that, okay? And the very last one is we just want to reduce those frequency of arguments. In general, I always encourage couples to sometimes move past those negative experiences instead of dwelling on them. You want to aim for a constructive conversation to alleviate anxiety for both partners. So you want it to be constructive, but you also want it to be where after the argument, you can just lay it to rest. You don't need to rehash it out, right? And every now and again, you start wanting to look at what types of arguments maybe are not worth it. What things can we talk about later? What things are more important? Sometimes we can agree to disagree. Sometimes we can let certain things go. Learning which topics that is or what moment that is up to you guys, but it's very important. So by doing so, you can create a long-lasting and loving relationship, all of doing some of these things with an avoidant partner, okay? So I hope this video was helpful. Please like, subscribe. I'll see you in the next one.